I'm back in my kitchen today, and for those of you who follow along on my Instagram page knows that I love to make cheese. But there is one cheese that I am determined to master, and I'm not very good at it. So that's what I'm tackling today. Those of you who don't know me, my name's Cece. My husband Kirk and I homestead in the big beautiful state of Montana. And follow along for my daily journey on Instagram. It is the same title, KC Montana Homestead. And today I am trying mozzarella again. Mozzarella is a cheese that we use, fairly frequently, make stromboli, make pizzas, that kind of a thing. And I am determined to not buy it anymore. But I have a really hard time with mozzarella. It is considered a beginner's cheese, and I pretty much stink at it. So I have no idea what today's is gonna look like, but sometimes that's the joy of just following along on somebody's journey. I wanna be real and show you guys things that I struggle with. I seem to be able to make a decent wheel of cheese in the cheese press, but fresh cheeses, which is mozzarella is considered a fresh cheese, I don't do super great at. So far we have heated up the milk. I have heated up the milk to 100 degrees, and then I added a culture and let it sit for another hour. And then I came back and added the rennet, and needs to sit for 45 minutes. We are almost at the stage where I can go in and cut these curds. And then all I need to do is stir it. Once the curds are cut, stir it for about an hour, and then comes the hard part. And I'll show you what that is when we get there. So I'll be back in just a little bit and we'll start cutting the curds and see what happens. Okay, so I'm supposed to do 2-inch squares vertically. Let that sit for a little and then come back and do 1-inch squares again. I do not have a fancy curd cutter by any means, and you are supposed to kind of cut them like this as well. I don't have any way of doing that. Sometimes I kind of go in and go like this, and sometimes it's just, they're the right size, but they're the whole length, and so you just have to stir them up. So I'm gonna let that set for just a minute, and then I'll come back and cut them the rest of the way. Now you stir, and yes, I have a big spoon that I could use, but honestly, your hands kind of work the best. And so I just need to stir them up for the next, just stir them gently for 2 minutes. The nice thing about your fingers is it's very gentle and you can control it so much more. You soon start to feel, you get to understand and feel what curds are supposed to feel like when they're fully cooked. It just gives you an opportunity to really have a much more hands-on, not as much guessing. 2 minutes. Okay. During these 2 minutes, because I wasn't able to cut them diagonally, a lot of times I pick up the really big curds and kind of just break them. Try to make your curds a little bit more all the same size. I think it goes without saying, make sure your hands are really clean and wash almost up to your elbows. When I am doing gardening work, it's hard for me to make cheese because you have what they call the garden manicure, where you have dirt under your nails and stuff like that. And you do not want that in your cheese. It could potentially contaminate your cheese. So over the next hour, I'm supposed to stir this every 3 minutes. Will it get stirred every 3 minutes? Probably not. But I found a lot of times it's just easier to just stay here in the kitchen, turn some music on, and just plan on standing by the cheese pot for the next hour. Okay, we are at the halfway mark. The curds are wanting to kind of mat together and stick together, so that's why you got to make sure you stir it, pretty frequently. I feel like the curds are all pretty close to the same size. You've got a few that are in there a little bigger than the others. And I was trying to think of a way how to describe how the curds change like texture. So when we very first cut it, I would compare the curds to almost like a Jell-O. And then as you're stirring them and they're getting a little bit more harder, they change to more of like a finger Jell-O consistency. And then the longer you continue to cook them, you can tell they're not, that one's a little bit softer, but he's still not breaking up, super easy. And they become much more like curds. They get a little bit, not rubbery, but a little bit more rubber-like. So we are about halfway through that hour. I'm sitting here playing a game on the tablet to keep me occupied. And we'll check in when the hour is done and I'm ready to do the next step. Okay, so they've been stirred for an hour. The next step is put all your curds in like a strainer and have some warm water in the bottom of your kettle. Then I always put a lid on it with my thermometer inside here. And over the next 2 hours, it needs to range somewhere between 96 and 100 degrees. Now, this may sound like a time that you get to take a break. You don't. That was my first mistake the very first time I ever made this, is the curds got way too hot and they basically became like rubbery and the cheese was ruined. So I am currently at 96 degrees. I'm going to turn this on low heat. I'm going to be watching this very consistently till it hits about 95, 96 degrees, and then I am going to take it off the heat and everything and watch it and make sure it does not get above 100 degrees. There's a very good possibility I'll take the lid off. You do not want it going over 100 degrees. So it is 4:25 now, so almost 6:30 this will be done, which is going to put us in the middle of dinner, like I said, middle of supper. So I did want to correct myself from something earlier. I had said that mozzarella is kind of considered a beginner's cheese. I believe that is the 30-minute mozzarella is a very good beginner's cheese. The traditional mozzarella is not a beginner's cheese in any way, shape, or form. I don't do the 30-minute mozzarella because I can't shred it nice. I have made it for very fresh eating, like if we've gone to a party and I wanted to bring a meat and cheese tray, I'll make up a 30-minute mozzarella very quickly. The traditional is what I like to use because I can shred it and then freeze it. But don't start with a traditional mozzarella as your first cheese. Just don't. So yeah, I'm going to be watching this very, very closely over the next 2 hours. Okay, these have been in for a little longer than 2 hours because Kirk was running late, so I had to run up to the barn and do chores. Next step is to take all of them out and cut them into 1/8 inch slices. And I am going to get some hot water ready because we need to dip them in hot water and melt it and stretch it. Honestly, this is the part that I struggle with like the very most. I cannot get it to stretch. like I've seen videos of them stretching. It still works, I can still shred it, but I don't get that stretch that I really wish I could get. Okay. Okay, the whey is running off. You can kind of see I have it tipped up. I'll just put a rag down or something and catch all that whey. This water needs to get to 180 degrees, which won't take much longer. And then I'm gonna put some gloves on because I stir it for a while and then I pull my hands out, then I use my hands. I also need to get a nice bowl of cold water. Okay, here we go. Let's see what happens. These are actually gloves that I bought from a cheese making company, so they're, you know, made for really hot. As you're supposed to kind of work it with the spoon. Basically, we're trying to get it to melt. And I always forget how long this part takes just to get the hot water to, you know, it's not even, it's 180 degree water and it takes quite a while for it to make the 1/8. If they're truly 1/8, it takes a while for it to like soften it up. Keep trying. The very first one didn't turn out super great, but I put a few more slices in. Let's see if I can get a stretch out of it. I'd like them to kind of fuse together. It just takes time, and for some reason in my mind I have that this should not take very long, and this takes so much longer than I think it does. Yeah. Gotta wait till it's a big gloopy glob, I guess. Eating some of the squeaky curds of that little tiny one that didn't turn out very good. I think this is how it's actually supposed to look. See how it wants to stretch. Oh, it's still tearing on me. It's not supposed to tear. It is still not stretching. Okay, I just had an idea. I don't know why I'm messing with this hot water. If I can't get it to stretch anyways, why don't I just shred this? Instead of trying to melt it and roll it into balls. Yeah, I'm gonna totally cheat. I'm just gonna quit because that's nice and like hard already, which is kind of what the cold water is supposed to do. So why melt it and then reshape it when it's already... I'm gonna try just shredding that and see what happens. Okay, we're just like eating little pieces out of it, putting salt on it. I shredded it on a tray, and then I'm gonna stick it in the freezer like this. It helps to keep it from getting, like when you put it in a sack, so it doesn't get to be one big lump. Hopefully this will help it freeze kind of more evenly. Probably should have done 2 trays, but it's 7 o'clock in the evening. I've had this going, I started it at like 12:30. I'm done. I'm done. I have no idea if this is gonna actually work out or not. Hopefully, I can give it a try here in a day or two and let you guys know, either when I edit or when I put it in the description, whether this was a good idea or not. So if you don't know for sure, check out the description box below, and I'll make sure that I put an update of whether this worked or not. So, all right, well, thanks for watching. Sometimes this is what happens when I'm learning. I share what I'm learning. So have a good one.